Alright guys, so we're going to start off the new year by taking a look at Moondrop's new flagship 100mm planar magnetic open back headphones. The pair that we're going to check out are the Moondrop Skyland. This is a pretty expensive pair of headphones because it does come in at $799, and you can tell that they're trying to make you feel good about paying that price tag, especially just by the presentation and what you're getting with the headphones, because it comes in this nice aluminum alloy briefcase with the headphones kind of sitting in this silk fabric material, and even the manual for these headphones comes in this really big black envelope. So it's definitely a different approach from Moondrop compared to their normal presentation where you have like the anime girl on the outside of the box. So definitely a big thumbs up on the presentation or the packaging for these headphones. But the headphones themselves kind of look like Moondrop's other open back planar headphones. You can see it has that really big squared off look at the top. It is pretty well built. You can see there's definitely some flexibility all around on these. They are using a 3D printed suspension style headband, which I actually found to be pretty comfortable. I was able to wear these for like a long period of time. I didn't find that, even though these do have some decent amount of weight, that it was really just sitting right there on the top of my head. Now, another thing that they did to try to give you the premium feel on these headphones is they're also using a hand-stitched lambskin ear pad. These again are very soft. This is another thing that is playing into the fact that you could wear these for a long period of time. And again, this just was not an uncomfortable pair of headphones. Now, the headphones themselves are using dual 3.5mm jacks that are on both ear cups, so it does have to be plugged into both of these. And the headphone cable that they've included is actually a flat cable, which is kind of unique. I don't see this with a lot of other headphones that I test. And so you plug the 3.5mm into both ear cups, and the actual plug-in that's on the cable itself is a 4.4mm balance plug-in. But these also come with adapters to be able to use a 1/4-inch plug-in and also an XLR jack. So there's many different types of plugins that you have with these, but it doesn't have the standard 3.5mm. So you can tell already that it really is made to be used with an amp. And speaking of using these with an amp, the impedance level on these is actually only 60 ohms with a sensitivity level of only 96 decibels. So, looking at it on paper, you wouldn't think that these would really require using an amp, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, forget those specs. And I don't know if it's because these are using that 100mm planar driver. I definitely recommend an amp using these if you want to be able to get anything out of the lows, the mids, and the highs, which we'll talk about that once we get to the sound. Now, the actual diaphragm that they're using is very thin. They're also using the N55 magnets, which are very fast, but it's the 100mm planar drivers that's using the full drive technology, or FDT, which is what they call it, that ultimately kind of makes these like an electrostatic pair of headphones. So most 100mm planar drivers are using it kind of looks like a snake going through it, and it has like this dead space on the sides. It's not really, fully taking advantage of that full area. Now, these are using almost 95% of that area, so it's going pretty much all the way left to right. So there's not really a lot of dead space, and it's not really allowing much vibration. So this is focusing a lot more on the mids and the treble. Think of this as more of a neutral style headphone, but there is a trick to really get the bass to sound fantastic. So we're going to talk about this in kind of like two different ways when it comes to the sound. Now, the first way is if you wear it like a traditional pair of headphones, you just put them on your ears, have the ear cups, cover your ears. It is very neutral. It is definitely very mid-focused. The treble and the bass, in a sense, kind of just has this neutral feel to it. It's not really trying to do anything to elevate these too much. The treble doesn't get like harsh. It's not sparkly or overly bright. And the bass doesn't have that bass presence, especially when it comes to sub bass. It just feels like, not necessarily that it's lacking, because it is hitting, but it's very fast. It just doesn't have a whole lot of impact to it. So think of this as a very neutral headphone with a spike in the mids. So vocalists come through very clean. There's a lot of instruments that have some really nice detail and kind of, stand out front a little bit more. But the way that I enjoyed listening to these the most, and I actually watched Super Review's video, and he talked about, how you could hold the headphones out and what it does to the bass is very, very impressive. I absolutely loved how different they sound when you do this. So I found that you just put them on your head like this, and then you angle them like this. So they're not actually touching the bottom of your ears. They are angled down towards your ears. This is a whole different listening experience. And the fact that they're open back means it really doesn't matter. It's going to have that same effect of anybody around you is going to be able to hear what you're listening to, whether you have the ear cups completely on your ears or if you have them angled. And the fact that they are open back and they are as big as they are doesn't really matter if you use them like this anyway, because this is a pair that you would just sit in your office or sit in your home and use, and not really a pair that you would use on the go. So I had no problem actually just using them like this the whole time, and I actually kind of like using them this way because even in normal mode, the way that the headphone cable kind of sticks out at the bottom, if you turn a certain way, the cable always kind of hits like your shoulder and it would readjust the headphones. So when it's angled this way, the cords are more out and I didn't experience them hitting my shoulders. So ideally, you know, I would say if it were up to me, I personally would just use them the whole time this way, which is obviously not how they're intended to be used. But at that angle and the sound that I was getting, that definitely kind of justified the price tag for me. So if you are somebody that only wants to use them in the traditional way and just have them around your ears and you are not interested in using them at an angle, it might be a little bit harder of a sale, at least for my listening preferences, because I do like bass. I don't like it to take over everything else, but I just like to have the impact of bass. And I'll listen to all different kind of genres, and there's some things, in my opinion, that just kind of sounds flat when it is neutral. I know that's what it's intended to do, but it's just lifeless. It's not really fun to listen to when it's like that. So you could have two different headphones with this pair, depending if you're willing to use them in both ways. And either way that you use them, the sound stays and the sound imaging is very, very impressive. It's very wide sounding. And these do a really good job of being able to tell where different sounds are coming from. In fact, I really liked using these for gaming because of the positional awareness and because of the openness of the sound. And again, angling them a little bit just added to like explosions, being able to feel those things. But at the end of the day, I was not disappointed. And it was kind of thanks to Super Review's review on these that kind of led me to just angle them. Even though he didn't point that out, he just pointed, you know, holding them out, what it did to the low end. So I figured just not cover my ears and see what it did. And it sounded fantastic. But guys, that wraps up my video on Moondrop's new Skyland flagship planar magnetic headphones. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.